blocking code, why don't we set up few console logs? Now, before we do that, I will create a new file and I'll say 11 here. And by the way, I definitely need to zoom in just so you don't think that I'm cheating. FS and async JS. And let's go to the app.js. We'll select everything and copy and paste. And of course, in the next video, we'll set up different module in this app.js. So for time being, I can just remove it. And then, like I promised, we'll set up some console logs. So why don't we go back to FS? And by the way, during this video, I'll zoom out because I definitely want to go back to this evil callback hell that we're getting from nesting callback within the callback. And as far as async, let me zoom in. And why don't we set up a console log in a few places? Let's say before we're accessing the file. So I'm going to go with log and we'll say start. Then we're going to go with write file sync. And then right after that, we're going to say I'm done with the task. And then inside there, let's write done with this task, copy and paste. And we're going to go with starting the next one. Starting the next one, meaning the next task. So that should do it. And now, of course, I need to go with clear. So clear my console. And I'm going to go to node. And then the file name is 10 hyphen and then fs. And we're looking for sync. I run it and notice something interesting where I have the start. So that is going to be before I read the files. And only then, once I'm done writing that file, I have done with this task and starting a next one. And what we need to imagine that, of course, this task of getting those files as well as the second one of setting up that file, well, it might be very time consuming, right? And imagine that if we have even 10 users and they're all the time using our application. And if, for example, this one user does this one task or both of them, and they take really long time, what it means that Node is not going to be able to serve other users. And trust me, it is at the end of the day, really big deal. And notice how JavaScript is reading this code synchronously. It just goes line by line. So we start with this task, then we read these files, and then we write the result. And again, if this is something that takes really long time, then pretty much your application is down. So no other user can do anything with that application because one of the users is, for example, reading these two files and then writing one. Again, this is a very simple example, but you need to picture that, of course, there's going to be tasks that take longer time. And as an alternative, let's take a look at the async approach. So here again, we'll set up some simple console logs. And again, we'll cover this in a bigger detail a bit later. For time being, let's just set up console logs and you'll see the biggest difference. Where I'm going to go with log and let's say start. So I'm going to do that before I read this file. And then I would want to go inside of the write file, the last one. And instead of console logging result, which of course is undefined, since in this case, we are not getting anything back. Now I want to go with done with this task. And then right after my first read file, I'm going to go with log and starting next task. Hopefully you're able to follow along again before the read file, inside of the write file, and then right after the first read file, because of course the other ones are nested inside of this callback. And then if we go to node and if we just change it around to 11 and then FA, and I believe it was async, and if we run it, notice something cool where I have my start and then I right away have this starting next task. And eventually I have this done with this task. So what this means is that since we have this asynchronous approach, the moment we start this task, we just offload. We just offload this task and we continue with our code. So that way, when user number one, for example, comes here and wants to get this functionality, Yeah, sure. Here, Node, just offload this task, and then your application can keep on serving other users. Again, it seems a bit trivial at the moment because we have a basic approach, but hopefully you get an idea. Where in one case, we have everything happening line by line. So only when we're done with the task, we're starting a next one. And with this approach, we start a task and we just offload that task and then we start a next task right away. And eventually, yes, we have done with this task in a console as well. Now, as far as the implementation, as far as the callbacks, yes, this is a bit messy, right? Notice how we only want to accomplish few tasks and it's already somewhat of a pain. Now, alternatives are using promises as well as async await. Now, again, hopefully you understand that when we talk about reading the file as well as the writing of the file, I use this as an example of some kind of task that would take a long time. Now, for the remainder of the course, mostly it's going to be reading from the database, writing to the database, and that sort of thing. But this is a very good illustration of how some task would take some time. So, of course, we would need to use a callback. And as far as the callbacks, yes, you can use them, but the code is going to get messy somewhat quickly. That's why a bit later in the course, we'll take a look at the alternatives, which are promises and async await. And I have to tell you honestly, for the remainder of the